Amazing call revealed. How two police officers lost their careers after attacking a black general. Marcus Williams stepped from his car, the sun casting long shadows across Main Street, illuminating the familiar storefronts and sidewalks he recalled from childhood. The town had always been a refuge for him, a place of memories woven with the fabric of his identity. Yet, now, the smile facing a nostalgic landscape masked a brewing storm within. Returning to Heartland, Kansas, to care for his ailing father meant confronting not only familial bonds but a past chiseled with tension, particularly the pervasive beliefs that hung thick in the air. As he walked into the diner, the warm scent of bacon and coffee briefly enveloped him. Regulars greeted him with smiles, but whispers erupted in a corner booth. Two police officers, their faces hard as iron, leaned closer, their glaring eyes full of accusation. The warmth drained from the room as distrust mingled with respect, an unrelenting reminder that not everyone embraced the dignity Marcus had earned through years of service. A tight knot twisted in his stomach. He felt the weight of their judgment and knew they believed him a threat. A black man in uniform was unwelcome in their eyes. Marcus's heart raced. Here, he was not just a retired general but also a symbol of something many struggled to accept. The contrasts echoed painfully within him. His military accolades stood against a backdrop of lingering racial bias. He hesitated, internal dialogue battling through the cacophony of his thoughts. Should he confront them, or should he uphold the honor he had fought so hard for, even when it was under fire? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He couldn't shake the feeling crashing down on him, a combination of defiance and dread. How could he serve his father, the community, and himself when the very ground he tread on was riddled with unspoken prejudices? It was a battlefield of another kind, and though Marcus had fought for his country, this war felt even more insidious. His mind raced thoughts of promises made and risks he took. Each moment stretched. Uneasy silence between him and the officers felt heavy, suffocating, escalating his tension. As he took a step forward, doubt mingled with courage. Every muscle in his body tightened with anticipation of confrontation. Instead of a warm reunion, Heartland stood poised on the brink of chaos. Just then, the familiar face of an old neighbor caught his eye, a glimmer of support breaking through the haze. The soft plea in their gaze reminded him of why he had come back. Yet, as Marcus clenched his fists, preparing both to defend his legacy and prove his worth, he felt the insidious whispers congeal into a storm. The tension that built would soon explode, and he could only brace himself for the impact of what was to come. Drawing a deep breath, standing at the precipice of a community desperate for resolution, he braced for a confrontation that would change everything. Would his determination bring solace or splinter the fabric of a town still mired in old wounds? The air thrummed with anticipation, and Marcus understood his battle had only just begun. As Marcus stood at the diner's entrance, watching the tension swell among the patrons, he felt acutely aware of the stakes surrounding him. Each invisible thread of disappointment from the officers pressed against him like the weight of the world, twisting his resolve. This wasn't just a matter of restoring dignity for himself. It was about redefining the narrative within a town too accustomed to entrenched perspectives. Realizing he had to act, Marcus squared his shoulders and stepped toward the murmuring booth. The officers glanced up, surprise cutting through their hostility. "We need to talk," he stated firmly, each syllable laced with purpose. The world around him faded, his heart pounding a steady rhythm that demanded recognition. "About what?" one officer challenged, his voice dripping with condescension. An unspoken challenge hung in the air. Would he soften the hostility, or would confrontation escalate into a deeper divide? For a fleeting moment, Marcus considered retreating, letting history play its course. But the thought ignited a fire within him, drawing on years of training and resilience. He hadn't spent his life molding himself into a leader to shy away now. About the perception of who I am, he replied, voice steady. I'm not here to fight, but I refuse to be relegated to the shadows of who I used to be. The diner had fallen silent, every ear tuned to the confrontation. He noted the bated breaths, the uncertainty lingering with the scraps of bacon on plates. In that charged atmosphere, he felt exposed personal stakes melded with professional duty, ripe for a moment of clarity, perception or reality. Another officer scoffed, the skepticism evident in his tone. The walls felt closer now, squeezing in a binary struggle. Every beating heart in the room held its breath, waiting for Marcus to navigate through this minefield of prejudice. Marcus took a step closer, sensing the defiance unfurling inside him. They can be one and the same, he said, letting conviction shine through. I've observed too much of this community hidden behind comfortable narratives. I fought for respect, but respect has to be mutual. The officers exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering momentarily across their faces. Marcus could see the flares of defensiveness battling against the possibility of understanding. He pressed on, drawing from the depths of his military training and emotional intelligence. He was not just making a statement, he was inviting a dialogue. Accusations fly easily when understanding lays bare, he asserted, but let us discuss what unites us. I'm not just a black general. I'm a human being standing here, confronting an unequal past and a disputed present. A flicker of something other than animosity sparked in one officer's eyes, but it quickly dimmed under a wave of pride and prejudice. Yet, Marcus caught that glimmer, and it ignited his own determination to break down the barriers. The road would be long, filled with arduous conversations, but he was willing to forge that path. As he stepped back, breathing heavily, he understood this was just the beginning. Their confrontation was bound to ripple through the community, resonating with potential change. Yet, beneath his mounting hope lay a pressing question: how does one man face an entire system resistant to transformation? Marcus's resolve solidified. His return to Heartland was not just about caring for his father, but reclaiming his narrative and agency in a place that sought to silence it. The potential for a shift loomed, yet he would need allies and hard truths to confront. In that moment, as tension waned into contemplation, he realized something monumental was brewing, not just for him, but for the collective understanding of the men guarding a systemic fortress. What layers would he need to peel back to steer the conversation toward healing? Would he be able to connect the truths that needed to be illuminated? The battle within him surged, creating momentum that signaled an uncertain, yet transformative path ahead. The air hummed with unspoken possibilities, and Marcus could feel every eye in the diner glued to him as he walked away. The officers' expressions darted from outright hostility to begrudging contemplation, a fragile bridge that he had just begun to build. Each step away from their table felt heavy yet liberating, like shedding a skin he had worn far too long. Outside, the crisp air was a sharp contrast to the warmth of the diner. His breaths were deep and tactical, as he mentally unpacked each moment of the confrontation. The flicker of potential understanding he noticed in the officer's gaze echoed in his mind, igniting a sense of purpose. Yet the specter of doubt loomed. Had he truly reached them? Or was his dialogue merely an exercise in futility against a rigid system? Marcus found a bench under an old oak tree, the leaves rustling gently as if whispering secrets. He took a moment to breathe, the exhaustion dragging at him like lead. He replayed their exchanges in his head, looking for the points of entry where he might find common ground. It was clear that genuine connections wouldn't just materialize. He needed to be strategic, intentional with each interaction. In the military, he had learned the value of strategy. Communication could be just as powerful as the weapons they wielded. He needed to apply that here, but in an environment alien to the orders and command that had governed his past. What steps were necessary to pull back the layers of division? Talking isn't enough, he muttered under his breath. I need to serve something tangible. His thoughts shifted to his father. His condition was ever present in the back of his mind. A sudden sense of urgency washed over him. Caring for his father was non-negotiable, but he also realized that his own healing was intertwined with the task of mending fractured relationships in Heartland. This dual purpose ignited an ember of determination. He de-armed himself for the personal battle at home, but now he had to turn the weapons of his experience toward a broader confrontation. He stood up, brow furrowed in contemplation as he headed toward the nearby community center. This was the very heart of Heartland, a place where stories converged. He remembered his father often emphasizing the essence of stories, each a bridge, connecting individual realities. If he could get the officers to confront their narratives, perhaps he could corral more allies willing to embrace the complexity of their shared history. As he approached the weather-worn building, Marcus felt the distinct chill of unease creep back in. Memories of past confrontations with the town council flashed through his mind, reminders of how easily conversations could devolve into arguments steeped in fear and refusal. Would this effort reveal hidden allies, or would it stir prejudices even deeper? It was a gamble, but he understood the stakes now. He would need to orchestrate a gathering, a chance for conversations that bridged divisions rather than deepened them, a forum for shared experiences. The weight of what lay ahead settled on his shoulders. He had treated this mission lightly until now, but as he squared his shoulders, determination flooded through him. What if this was the moment he led the community to redefine its narrative, his narrative, by embracing authentic stories? Marcus took a deep breath, ready for the challenge, but a nagging thought interrupted his resolve. Could he truly inspire change? Or would he just be another voice drowned out by a chorus of fear and resistance? As he stepped into the center, the world outside faded further. The walls felt like both sanctuary and tribunal. The stirring within him blended with growing apprehension. Who would show up? Would they be ready to confront the uncomfortable truths that lay within? The path ahead twisted uncertainly, shaping a crossroads far more intricate than he imagined. He knew he was stepping into what could be an inflection point, a moment poised on the edge of transformation. The tension was palpable. The time had come to face both his past and a future that remained perilously undecided. The ceiling tiles murmured with age as Marcus moved through the community center. A wave of memories flickered in his mind, the heated debates, the promise of unity smudged by mistrust, and his father's voice echoing, reminding him of the importance of building bridges. The atmosphere inside was thick with uncertainty, amplified by the faint buzz of whispered conversations. It felt like a minefield of unaddressed grievances. Yet, Marcus recognized that he had ventured into this territory not just as a participant but as a catalyst for change. He gathered his thoughts, running through the outline of the dialogue he envisioned. The gatherings he had crafted in the military had hinged on clear objectives, promoting cooperation and trust among his peers. Here, however, he found himself negotiating the uncomfortable space between fear and hope, a tightrope walk demanding careful consideration. Would they respond to his invitation for a conversation, or would they view it as an encroachment on their established beliefs? The first footsteps echoed from the entrance. A pair of officers entered, a risk. Would they be comrades or adversaries tonight? The weight in his gut settled deeper as he recognized the officer from the diner. Their eyes met briefly, his brow furrowing in unspoken acknowledgement. This was a moment to harness for transformation, yet a simmering tension lingered, threatening to tear the fragile atmosphere apart. "Thanks for coming," Marcus said, finding it hard to gauge their expressions. He was no longer merely a soldier or a son. He was stepping into the role of a mediator before he'd even taken the pulse of the room. Slowly, others filtered in: families, critics, skeptics. Each face mirrored a different facet of Heartland's narrative. They carried wounds from the past, unspoken fears about the future, and a desperate need to be heard. He could almost feel their hesitation pulling against the fabric of his determination, yet an electric pulse grew within him, pushing him to embrace the challenge ahead. As he began to speak, sharing his own story of loss and resilience intertwined with his father's journey, he felt a slight shift in the room. Some eyes softened, whispers turned into attention, breathing life into the dialogue. "It's more than just the here and now," he emphasized, his voice steadying. "We are shaped by the stories we inherit, and they need to be acknowledged before we can move forward." A woman near the back raised her hand, her expression a potent mix of curiosity and skepticism. But how do we know this isn't just talk? We've been promised progress before. Her question hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. But it was a crack in the wall he could exploit. Marcus opened his mouth, prepared to wade into the storm. This was where the intention of his approach would be tested. Belief is built on trust, and tonight, we must break open the stories that hold us back. The words flowed with urgency, sweeping through the attendees like wind under a wing. Suddenly, the officer from the diner interrupted, challenging Marcus with a pointed tone. You can't just waltz in here and expect us to share everything. You don't know what you're asking. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. This confrontation could either splinter their budding dialogue or strengthen it. His instincts kicked in. No, I don't know, but I want to understand. And to do that, we need to be vulnerable. I need you to help me navigate that. The tension shifted as murmurs circulated, some resonating with curiosity, others pulling back in apprehension. A young man interjected, revealing a hurt buried deep within. It's scary to share our stories. We've held them close for so long. With time slipping into silence, the crowded pressure of anticipation danced on Marcus's skin. This was the moment. He sensed it would either evaporate into silence or ignite decisive conversations that could reshape their town's trajectory. He had to draw from this energy to not only stand firm in his quest for connection but to invite them all to let down their walls. The sway of emotions beckoned him forward, a call to action that pushed him away from doubt and straight into the heart of the unknown. And at that moment, he wondered, would he step into the unknown with them, or would this be another chance lost among the shadows of fear? As he stood at this pivotal junction, a murmur rippled through the crowd, and Marcus's heart skipped a beat. A hand shot up from a familiar face, poised with unexpected intensity. I have something to say. The hand belonged to a woman named Lisa, whose voice was thick with suppressed emotion. Her willingness to speak pierced through the tension like a bullet. I want to share my brother's story. Marcus leaned in, captivated. This was an opportunity for real dialogue, an act of courage that could reverberate through the room. He gestured for her to proceed, feeling the collective breath of the room as they awaited her words. My brother was shot during a traffic stop, she began, her voice shaky but resolute. He wasn't doing anything wrong. Nothing to deserve what happened to him. We've been living this nightmare for years, and people act like it's just another headline. But it was my brother, my family. As she spoke, Marcus saw her eyes glisten. The crowd as silence deepened, a collective gathering of grief transforming into empathy. It was a shared experience, even among those who had yet to vocalize their own pain. And when I heard about people wanting to unite, I thought maybe she hesitated, clutching her hands tightly together as if physically holding back her fears. Maybe we could actually find some understanding. Understanding. The word hung heavily, sweetened by hope but bitter with reality. Marcus sensed the fragile line balancing on her vulnerability. It was a reckless gamble, and he felt his heart pound in anticipation. He glanced at the officer from the diner, whose expression was inscrutable, but a flicker of discomfort betrayed his strong exterior. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa, Marcus interjected gently. Your brother's story isn't just about loss. It's a call to action for all of us to confront our fears and biases. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Each story shared became a thread weaving a fabric of connection that Marcus longed for. Even as a growing fear gripped his chest, would they unravel threads, or would they stitch something new together? The officer shifted uneasily, breaking his silence. But what do you want us to do? Sit around a fire and sing kumbaya? My colleagues and I face real threats every day. You can start by listening, Marcus replied, steel in his voice. This isn't about denying your experiences. Everyone's story is valid. But we must acknowledge the bigger picture, the pain we've all suffered, whether it's behind a badge or at home. The officer seemed taken aback, and though tension remained, the air felt lighter. It was a risk, addressing him with such conviction, but Marcus recognized that growth demanded discomfort. Lisa's gaze swung back to the officer, My brother didn't get a second chance. All we have left are the memories. Can we really say fear should stop us from hearing each other out? An internal struggle flickered across the officer's face, and Marcus noted it, a moment of grappling with the persistent doubt that had rooted itself in his mind since the beginning. Could he genuinely foster connection and lead such a transformation? As the room again sunk into a heavy silence, Marcus knew more barriers would surface. He needed to prepare himself, not just to address the fears of the assembly, but to confront his own worries as well. Could he maintain this momentum, or would deep-seated fears drive them apart? Then, just as he felt they reached an unsteady equilibrium, a loud voice thundered from the back. You all think this is about talking? You really don't know the risks involved, do you? Fear and uncertainty snapped back in the room like a taut rubber band, and Marcus knew this confrontation could either be his chance to solidify the dialogue or obliterate it altogether. The pathway for growth was widening, but so were the doubts. He felt his fingers tense. The escalation was inevitable. Would he be able to redirect the conversation back to understanding, or would he falter and let division claim the night? As he turned toward the voice, his breath caught, the stakes suddenly feeling immeasurable. The moment to confront not just the crowd's fears but his own had arrived. Who do you think you are? The voice boomed again, cutting through the charged atmosphere like a knife. Marcus turned toward the source, his heart racing. Lurking at the back was a man with a crossed arms posture, looking at him as though he were the enemy. I'm just trying to create a space for real conversations, Marcus replied, choosing his words carefully. His tone, though calm, quivered with an undertone of challenge. This wasn't a simple debate but an emotional battleground filled with unspoken fears and anger. Space for what? You think a few heartfelt stories will change anything? Attitudes don't change with words. They change when people face the consequences of their actions. The man shot back, disdain draping over every syllable. Murmurs of agreement rolled like waves through the crowd, feeding the fire of tension. Marcus felt his palms sweat, realizing he had to anchor the room before it plummeted into chaos. Calling forth his inner resolve, he spoke. And what are the consequences? Is it more anger, more division? The man scoffed. You think we're just going to sit here and pretend that everything is fine? That the officer behind that badge doesn't have to fight for his life just as much as Lisa fought for her brother's? You have no idea. As the man's words echoed, Marcus's mind raced. He recognized a kernel of truth in his accusation. It had become painfully clear that he was scrutinizing this entire situation through a lens cushioned by personal privilege. He could feel the pain of his own ignorance. It burned yet offered an unexpected clarity. Taking a deep breath, Marcus leaned forward, allowing his vulnerability to surface. You're right. I can't possibly understand what it's like to be in your position, just like Lisa can't experience what it feels like to be on the other side. Maybe this is why we're all here, to find the courage to face our truths, however difficult. Silence fell over the room, but the man's glare remained unyielding, a mix of skepticism and hurt. Fearing retreat, Marcus pressed on. What if this moment isn't about choosing sides? What if it's about choosing to see each other fully? Lisa interjected, her voice tinged with desperation. Please, can we at least try to understand one another? My pain is directly tied to the action of others, and I want to know why. The man's expression softened a fraction, but vulnerability had not yet struck him. You think I can just be the bad guy? It's not that simple. Marcus seized the shift. I don't think anyone is inherently a villain. We all carry burdens, ones we don't know how to ease. I want to help by making sense of this, not merely glossing over or ignoring the difficult conversations. The atmosphere shifted. Some faces now bore expressions of contemplation rather than hostility. As murmurs of agreement filled the space again, Marcus felt a surge of purpose igniting within him. This wasn't a setback, it was an opportunity for deeper engagement that he had chased desperately. But just as he thought they might inch toward something constructive, the man shot back. And if it doesn't work, what then? You'll be left standing here, nothing but empty words to comfort you. Doubt crept back in, gnawing at Marcus's resolve as the crowd held its breath, teetering between hope and despair. He felt an urgency to affirm their work while wrestling with the fragility of the moment. Realizing the burden he bore, his thoughts crystallized into one question. What could it mean for us all to lean into the discomfort? What if that's the key to forging deeper connections? As the confrontation reached its apex, the room fell silent again, his conviction hanging in the balance. The moment carried weight, but would it resonate or disintegrate? The stakes amplified, and Marcus realized he could either make a pivotal change or lose everything they had built up until now. Determination surged through him, yet uncertainty loomed with every heartbeat. Would he find the strength to follow through, or would he retreat back into shadows of fear when faced with the very real weight of their revelations? The silence felt suffocating, hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to erupt. Marcus was acutely aware of the weight of expectation resting on his shoulders. He could sense the crowd's divided energy, a mixture of anxious anticipation and unwavering skepticism. Every pair of eyes felt like a spotlight, illuminating the looming dilemma he faced. What if we do lean into that discomfort? He asked, his voice steady but vulnerable. What if we confront these unsettling truths together, instead of allowing fear to perpetuate our separation? The question, bold in its simplicity, circled the room. Although some faces still echoed animosity, others now mirrored curiosity and a flicker of hope. It was the first indication that this exchange could evolve beyond mere confrontation. Still, Marcus felt the sting of self-doubt biting at his resolve. He had never been thrust into a confrontation this raw. He realized each word he uttered carried the potential to ignite change, but it also risked backfiring, fracturing the fragile morale that had begun to form. He cast a quick glance around the room, searching for reassurance in the familiar faces that had fought alongside him thus far. Every one of them bore their struggles, but it was the man standing at the back that held his focus. The skepticism etched onto his features had shifted slightly, revealing a hidden vulnerability buried under layers of armor. Marcus knew that beneath the bravado lay a person wrestling with his own narrative. I grew up with my own prejudices, Marcus confessed, leaning into the openness he was advocating for. I didn't see them until life forced me to. Experiences shape us. Those moments aren't just mine to own. They belong to all of us. Can we learn to share these experiences and grow through them? At that, the room buzzed with murmurings. Lisa was nodding, a glimmer of gratitude sparking in her eyes. The man at the back relaxed his arms slightly, though skepticism remained. What's the point? He retorted, his voice gritty with emotion. Are we even capable of change? Or are we just wading through this together until we drown in our differences? Marcus felt his heart pound, grappling with the confrontation. One more misstep and he risked losing the chance to breach the emotional dam before him. But he couldn't back down. He had come this far. What if it's about embracing the uncertainty? Maybe that's the only way to build deeper connections. What if our struggles could become the foundation for healing? With every word, Marcus felt bits of his own walls crumbling. This exploration wasn't about absolutes. It was about navigating the gray. In his career, he had pursued the right answers to emerge successful. Yet here, in this raw interaction, he understood that success was a much more treacherous path paved by empathy, vulnerability, and mutual respect. Revelation comes from discomfort, he continued, but it also comes from understanding that healing can't occur in isolation. We must risk being misunderstood to truly connect. It's a daunting task, yet possibly the most important one we will ever face. As he spoke, he saw the man at the back, visibly wrestling with conflicting emotions. The flicker of realization in his eyes ignited something unexpected within Marcus. It was a blend of hope and trepidation, a sensation that wrapped itself around his chest, urging him onward. What I'm suggesting isn't easy, he pressed. It demands strength from all of us. It will challenge not just our perceptions but the framework of our identities. But what if this is how we, as individuals, truly define ourselves, through our commitment to understanding rather than disregarding one another? Just then, a young woman from the front row stood up. She had spent the entire exchange silent, her face a canvas of intense emotion. I'm in, she declared, her voice shaking but resolute. We need to lean into the discomfort for our sake, for our future. If we don't try, we'll lose everything. With her declaration, the atmosphere shifted even further. People began rising one after another, voicing their readiness to confront the convoluted complexities that had long been swept aside. As the room filled with hesitant alliances and tentative commitments, that tension briefly released its grip. In that charged moment, Marcus felt buoyed. Yet he couldn't shake the lingering fear that this transition into empathy might ultimately be more perilous than enlightening. But as new voices joined in, an unforeseen strength emerged. Yet, amidst that burgeoning hope, an unnerving question came over him. Could he truly lead them down this new path? Or would it crumble under the weight of unresolved resentment, just like every other attempt at change? Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the pressure swell once more. If they were to walk this road together, they would have to face not only their own fears but also the scars of their past. Would they break through to a new understanding together, or fracture under the weight of their histories? The answer lingered in the charged air, tantalizing and terrifying. As the murmurs faded and hands dropped back to sides, a palpable shift settled over the group, a collective inhalation of uncertainty. Marcus felt the momentum he had stirred blanket him in a strange duality of exhilaration and dread. He had ignited a spark, yet the flames of doubt flickered at the edge of his resolve. The young woman's declaration still echoed in his ears. For our sake, for our future. Each word carried the weight of responsibility. Could he take these fragmented expressions of commitment and weave them together into something transformative? The internal conflict clawed at him. Failure wasn't just a personal blow. It would reverberate throughout this vulnerable assembly, potentially extinguishing the fledgling hope he had awakened. He cleared his throat, an attempt to anchor himself, and scanned the crowd. Some faces now radiated determination, but others still carried the heaviness of disbelief. It was with an effort that he turned his focus back to the man at the back, the very embodiment of skepticism. Marcus wondered what chains held him captive, what fears lay just beneath his hardened exterior. Leading this transformation, he mused silently, is as much about them as it is about me. Internal pressure coiled within him. Marcus recalled the countless times in meetings justifying decisions with polished rhetoric or avoiding difficult conversations to maintain harmony. It was a veneer of professionalism that stifled authenticity. But here, he was reminded that leadership wasn't about avoiding confrontation. It emerged from diving directly into the uncomfortable. Let us dig deeper into our stories, he suggested, his voice steadying as he drew on newfound insight. If we truly desire change, we must brave the heart of our experiences. Let us break down the walls between us, starting with genuine vulnerability. A few in the audience exchanged glances, the unspoken challenge igniting a flicker of anticipation. The man in the back shifted again, his brow furrowing. And what if those stories we share just unveil our resentments, our prejudices? He shot back, a glint of defiance sparking to life. Marcus felt a tremor ripple through him, but it also fueled a fire within. Then we faced them. This isn't about casting blame. It's about understanding the roots of our pain and discovering how to navigate it together. There was a steadiness in his assertion that he hadn't expected. Doubts remained, but he realized they could coexist with determination. The room remained tense, yet something began to shift in the air. Finally, a woman from the side ventured. I've never shared my story, it's daunting, but perhaps it's worth it. Her admission hung heavy, igniting a spark of courage in others. One by one, individuals began to unfold their narratives, revealing hurt intermingled with resilience. Each voice interlaced vulnerability with unspoken strengths, threading a tapestry of shared humanity. Marcus leaned into this moment of connection, becoming acutely aware of variations in tone and body language. Each story was a testament to struggle and, within them, the potential for empathy surged. However, each revelation also unwrapped layers of unresolved pain. A realization crashed upon him. Navigating this new terrain required meticulous care, lest progress devolve into deeper conflict. As laughter mingled with tears, he felt a complex shift in the atmosphere. This catharsis felt exhilarating, but there remained an undercurrent of trepidation. Would these shared experiences, raw and exposing, bring about true connection or deepen their discord? An older man spoke up, his voice rough yet rich with conviction. We've hidden behind labels long enough. It's time we shed them together. His declaration sparked applause, a unity born from an unexpected wellspring of courage. Yet, as the final applause rolled through the room, Marcus couldn't shake an impending question. As the weight of their stories bloomed forth, could they withstand the scrutiny when the facade of vulnerability stripped them down raw? Suddenly, he realized that leading this group wasn't simply guiding them toward healing. It was a process of self-revelation for himself, too. Marcus felt the instability beneath his feet, and he questioned if he was ready to face his own history now that others had begun to lay theirs bare. He took a deep breath, the moment teetering on the precipice of something profound. Could he embrace this fragile momentum, or would he falter? His heart raced as he contemplated the path ahead, knowing that the next steps might lead to discovery or disarray. As the echoes of applause settled into an uneasy silence, Marcus felt the weight of the moment crash upon his shoulders. He had stirred something in the room, an atmosphere ripe with vulnerability and courage, but now he was acutely aware of its fragility. The warmth of shared stories faded into a chill of uncertainty. What if the openness they had begun to establish crumbled under the scrutiny of unanswered questions? His thoughts swirled around the older man's challenge, a potent reminder that shedding labels was not merely an act of defiance. It required a commitment to genuine change. What might that change demand of him? His gaze drifted, landing on the skeptical figure at the back. The man's arms remained crossed tightly over his chest, his skepticism like an impenetrable fortress. What did he need to hear to breach that defensive barrier? Let us not mistake courage for comfort, Marcus said suddenly, his voice sweeping across the audience. We've uncovered the surface. Now we must dive deeper. I know that moving forward will ask us to confront our darkest fears. He had spoken before, but this felt different. The conviction coursing through him felt raw and real, far removed from his scripted motivations. One by one, eyes fixed on him as Marcus continued, let us not just recall our stories. Let us examine what held us back. What failures linger in our pasts that define us? What truths do we bury under pride? He felt an unexpected surge of courage. Stripped of pretense, he was digging into the very heart of what hindered him. His words hung palpably in the air, the weight of their implications exacerbating the tension. He had walked a fine line between leading and exposing himself, but the vulnerability began to feel less like a risk and more like a necessity. Marcus turned inward, asking himself those same piercing questions he posed to the group. What had he buried beneath the surface? The feeling of self-doubt bubbled up again. Was he truly equipped to guide them? The elder man from before began to speak, his voice low but resonant. I've been afraid of how my past choices could be judged. But you're right, the shame needs to surface. The rawness of vulnerability had begun to soften the hardened edges of the room. With that admission, Marcus saw a small light of support flicker in the man's eyes. Another voice chimed in, softer yet steady. I went through something similar, a burden I've carried for too long. Suddenly, a ripple effect began to stir as others followed suit. Each confession peeled away protective layers, each revelation inviting others to shed fears and burdens they had carried in secret. Yet, as more stories emerged, so did shadows, the quiet admission of regrets, deep-seated insecurities, and pain carved through time. Marcus struggled to maintain focus. The emotional barrage stirred up echoes from his own past that he had long since patted down. What traumatic instances had shaped the leader he had become? A gnawing self-doubt clawed at him, whispering he might not have the strength to bear his own truth in front of others. And just like that, he was at a crossroads. Marcus suddenly recognized the paradox of leadership. Forging ahead required not just guiding others, but inviting them into his own vulnerabilities. The impending decision loomed large. Would he risk revealing his unraveling threads? As he balanced on this precipice of self-discovery, He understood he wasn't just confronting the fears of others. He was called to confront his own. The fear of exposure felt paralyzing. What would they think if they saw the real Marcus, the man riddled with flaws and failures, questioning his own worthiness to lead? The room felt like a coiled spring, ready for release. As conversations swelled with palpable emotion, Marcus sensed the tide washing over him. The moment would come when he would have to stand naked in front of them. Could he sustain the extraordinary momentum that now linked them? The tension thrummed in the air, woven through with threads of buried truths, a tangible challenge waiting to ignite. But could he truly embrace this vulnerability, or would it shatter the connection before it could fully blossom? His resolve solidified with a hint of apprehension. The moment was nearing when he'd have to decide. Would he step forward and unveil his truth, or retreat back into the safety of silence? Marcus stood at the heart of the community center, surrounded by the raw energy of shared stories and fresh vulnerability. The air buzzed with a palpable tension, but it also pulsed with a flickering hope. He realized this gathering was not merely about confronting the past, it was, in fact, an invitation to foster profound connections. As he navigated the sea of faces, Marcus' resolve deepened. Each narrative shared, each painful admission and tearful revelation served as a reminder of the intricate tapestry of their collective experience. He had come so far from the hesitant general who once faced hostility on Main Street. The weight of the previous evening echoed in his mind. He thought about the moments when he challenged the perceptions of the two officers, when every word had been sharpened by the necessity of truth. Their surprise acceptance had unearthed a sense of purpose within him, not just for himself, but for the broader community that lay before him, willing to embrace their complex stories. It signified growth that went beyond his personal journey. It heralded an evolution that began with dialogue. Tonight, we opened the door to something transformational, Marcus said, his voice steady, infused with the strength of conviction honed from struggle. But I realized that to lead this journey, it's time I join you in this passage toward authenticity. He could feel the collective breaths held in suspense as he prepared to unveil his own story, a necessary act of solidarity with those who had shared their vulnerabilities. I have carried burdens too, he began, the weight of his past coiling tightly within him. The burden of being both a leader and a black man in a system historically designed to overlook individuals like me. The words crystallized the struggle he had borne quietly. He released them into the air, breaking the silence like glass shattering against stone. And it has taken me far too long to confront how that experience shaped my own narrative's misconceptions I clung to, anger that festered, and fears that paralyzed me. He took a fortifying breath, grounding himself in the moment. As he released those carefully guarded truths, he witnessed the faces in the room shift. Some softened, others remained contemplative. I feared that by stepping into the light, I would be exposed for everything I thought was unworthy, he admitted, feeling relief wash over him. But this isn't about perfection. It's about the human connection born through shared storms. With a charged silence filling the space, something remarkable unfolded. The hardened man at the back who had once questioned Marcus' motivations now leaned forward, visibly moved. His expression reflected challenges only the brave would confront. Perhaps he too was ready to share what haunted him. Marcus continued, by sharing my truth, I liberated myself from an internal cage, and I invite each of you to recognize that personal freedom is birthed from shared experiences. Growth is a collective endeavor. It requires courage to not only speak our truths, but to also listen. In that moment, he recognized that leadership wasn't about resolving every conflict but facilitating an environment in which healthy discourse could thrive. Tension shifted again. The conversations transformed, underscored by newfound respect. The crowd began to interlace their narratives, transforming individual grief into a broader understanding. As the hours melted into dialogue, what began as a chaotic conglomeration of pain evolved into a dynamic web of hope. Light-hearted banter intertwined with serious reflections, drawing in those who once felt perpetually stifled by their own histories. They dared to confront stereotypes, fears, and biases, the very armor that had once divided them. And then, the man from the back stepped forward, vulnerability flickering in his eyes. "I felt that anger, too," he said, his voice low. "It eats away at you when no one hears your story. Thank you for giving me space to speak mine." Cheers rippled through the room, breaking the cages of silence and allowing laughter and tears to coexist. Marcus took a step back, feeling lighter than he had in years, proud of being the spark igniting their collective journey. The evening culminated in a poignant realization: underneath every barrier lay shared humanity. The community he had returned to was no longer just a reminder of the conflict he faced. It had transformed into a tapestry woven with the threads of countless experiences converging into healing. With each passing moment, Marcus recognized the significance in his transformation. He not only reclaimed his narrative, but also guided others to do the same. This pivotal gathering marked a new chapter, composed by once hostile hearts now pulsing with understanding and unity. They would all embark on this journey together, a step toward healing and reconciliation, a realignment of purpose. As the evening drew to a close, he stood taller. No longer just a soldier or a general, he was a facilitator of change, a vessel of connection, poised to embrace whatever next steps awaited him. The challenges of Heartland lay behind them, but the legacy of their journey was firmly rooted in the promise of a shared future. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.